Oh, it was going to be tough to follow Morgan until he got into policy. Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here tonight. Before I get started, I want to make a very, very important introduction this evening, and one that frankly is long overdue. Governor Beshear, this is the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Now, sir, this is not a meeting of the AFL-CIO. It's not a meeting of the KEA or the ACLU, so you may not recognize many of the attendees, but they do not bite. And if they do, I'm sure you know a couple good trial attorneys. Heck, I think Greg Stumble may have a little extra time right now. Before you object, Rocky, you're not in my chamber anymore. The men and the women in this room represent the economic engine that fuels this state's economy, companies large and small, creating jobs and contributing to our tax base. I understand up until tonight, Governor Beshear, that your relationship with the chamber has been somewhat one-dimensional, kind of like a cardboard cutout. I know, it's bad, but in all seriousness, Governor, we look forward to working with you the same way that the Kentucky legislature works with most governors. Sort of like when Cousin Eddie shows up at the Griswold family Christmas. And Governor, if we have any money left after the end of the budget session, we plan to fly you up to the third floor and tell you what's in the budget. Of course, after the billions of dollars that got promised in this campaign, it may look a little more like the Jelly of the Month Club than that beautiful in-ground swimming pool that Sparky had his heart set on. My friend Robert Stivers, always good to be with you, Mr. President. You know, this is St. Robert's favorite time of the year. All the little lobbyists come scurrying in and ask him, tell him they've been good for the year and tell him what they want for the session. Of course, we all know the truth. None of you are any good. But we grade on the curve in Frankfort, and some of you will end up on the nice list. Others, you'll get switches and termination notices from your clients. Let me say a word about our constitutional officers that just got sworn in on Monday. I love picturing your smiling faces just as they are right now, right before our staff comes down the hall in a couple of weeks to deliver your budgets to you. But how about these new officers? Bunch of really, really great young faces, and Mike Harmon. I'm kidding. Mike and I served together, and Lord knows he's weathered or aged better in his new role than I have in mine. So let me also congratulate Leader Joni Jenkins on her historic election. You know, Joni once embarrassed me on the House floor by presenting me with a way premature AARP packet. And I vowed revenge, and just let me tell you, Joni, that being a leader does not make you immune from retribution or embarrassment. I think I hurt Joni's feelings last year when I gavelled her down, but Rocky, maybe you should have a conversation with her about your PTSD treatments. All jokes aside, I am serious about this. We're all going to have to work together. We're all going to have to get to know each other, and we're going to have to continue to build this state's economy. People of Kentucky expect it, and furthermore, they deserve it. Okay, let's get down to business. Since we were given the majority in 2017, Kentucky House has moved forward on pro-jobs, pro-worker, and pro-family agenda that is aimed at improving the lives of all Kentuckians. And that work is paying dividends. In the 3-year period, generated over $20 billion in investment in Kentucky businesses and created more jobs in the last 3 years than have been created in any single 3-year period in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And we have 30,000 jobs open and waiting to be filled. It's just a handful of examples of things that happen when you foster policies for economic success. We also owe our collective gratitude to Speaker Pro Tem David Meade and to Leader Jenkins for their tireless work on reforming our adoption, foster care, and child welfare system, truly making Kentucky a better place for kids. Of course, we also need to recognize there's a great deal of work to be done to ensure that we bring that promise and prosperity to every region of Kentucky. The election of a new governor certainly changes the dynamic in our capital city. And Governor, all jokes aside, we intend to work with you. But we also intend to uphold the principles and values that our constituents elected us to bring to Kentucky and to bring to the legislature. Make no mistake, There is no mandate in this election other than to be likable. As we are all too aware, this session will be dominated by crafting a 2-year budget, which will spend $22 billion on education, pensions, health care, and corrections, and other programs. We continue to be a state with many needs and with limited resources. As Republicans have done since becoming the majority, we will be the adults in the room. We have to, since the campaign of 2019 produced many promises that cannot be fulfilled. It's fun to promise the moon, but before you do, make sure that your arms are long enough to reach it. And therein lies the problem. Those arms and the influence associated with it are shorter than the promises. 10 years ago, the State Chamber delivered the first leaky bucket report that called alarms on the impact of unfunded pensions, cost of incarceration, and Medicaid. And those issues remain today. Despite fully funding the pension system, for the first time in decades, Kentucky still carries $43 billion in unfunded pension liability. While other states are experiencing a reduction in prison population, Kentucky's population continues to explode. We have more than twice as many Kentuckians on Medicaid than we do in public schools. These are extraordinary burdens, but let me assure you the Kentucky House is committed to working on these issues. We have many challenges created by the failed policies of the past. It may be slow progress, but it will be deliberate, thoughtful, and it will be successful. We all know the opportunity that we have to make great strides in workforce development. 41% of our citizens are not actively engaged in the workforce. And despite thousands of unfilled jobs, Kentucky ranks 47th in overall workforce participation. We know the barriers that prevent people from entering the workforce, and we must attack them holistically. We must continue to attack the addiction crisis that ravages our state. It's also time for us to have a serious conversation about criminal justice reform. We have to create and craft reentry laws that work for the people of the Commonwealth. I want to thank Chairman Jason Petrie, Jason Nemus, and Kim Moser, among others, that are working tirelessly on this effort. We must also have the courage and compassion to undertake meaningful public assistance reform that ensures that the safety net is one that facilitates and not one that oppresses. Gap insurance and child care, among others, help ease the burdens of those seeking to reenter the workforce. We can no longer be satisfied with the words, "I cannot afford to take a job." Finally, we can talk about economic growth, unemployment insurance reform, fixing our infrastructure, addressing jails, but if we fail to educate the next generation, everything else that we have done will be for nothing. As the majority under Stephen Rudy's leadership, we crafted a budget that had record spending on education. And we are committed to making education funding a priority in this budget as well. I could stand here all night and talk about roads and infrastructure, but those are areas that are well known, and they are areas that without teamwork and cooperation and bipartisanship, they will go nowhere. I want to close on a personal note. I made fun of a few folks tonight, but I want to give my personal thanks to Rocky Adkins for his service to the Commonwealth and for his friendship. Rocky and I have spent, yes, absolutely. Rocky and I have spent countless hours in my office talking about civility and about the importance of restoring the faith of the people in the people's house. I also want to thank the 97 other members of the House that are sacrificing for the service to the Commonwealth. You've heard me say a number of times, the public service is a noble undertaking, but in order to restore the public's faith, we have to act nobly. I pledge to our members, I pledge to the people that sent us to serve those things. Thank you again for inviting me. God bless the Commonwealth.